economy.
But Canada is expected to feel a bit of a pinch here, Michael. And we also know that, as I mentioned at the top here, that Prime Minister Carney, he's trying to get elected. And he's now using these reciprocal tariffs. And he had this to say. Watch this.
The Government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach, with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement.
So a bit of a two-part question here, Michael. I mean, how are Canadians perceiving this, given that he wants to be elected as the Prime Minister here soon? But also, by hitting back at the U.S., is that a smart play, given that Canada relies so heavily on the United States?
75% of Canada's trade is the United States. Don't forget, Carney's representing the Liberals that for the last 4 decades have put our country in a perilous condition. The United States is doing a restructuring. Interestingly, we're talking about 1965. Lyndon B. Johnson put together the Canada-U.S. Auto Pact. So that's all gone. Should Canada have reciprocal tariffs? If Carney didn't do that, the Canadian populace would be all upset. Let's understand, and I think this is a hard statement to say, but did Donald Trump give Canada a wake-up call? Canada's got to rebuild its supply chain. It's got to strengthen their auto sector, seek alternative, and replace the dependency on the United States market. Now, there's going to be 3,200 people who are out of work in Windsor. There's going to be about 900 people, I think it is, in Indiana and Wisconsin in the auto sector. It's a hard pill to swallow, but we're also in a volatile election scenario. It's about 20 days till we're going to have a new prime minister, and you've got the Liberals against the Conservatives. I believe, in my final point, as you've seen with many other countries, like Vietnam, like Israel, like Cambodia, others who understand what the word free trade means. 0% for you, 0% against us. This is exactly what Canada should do. This is exactly what the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, said, 0-0. This is where Trump wants to go, and it is the right thing for America. It's going to be a little painful, but let's swallow the pill and say, okay, drop all trade barriers. Can you imagine how strong North America would be, Canada and the U.S. together, with no trade barriers? This is what Trump wants. I think he's getting there.
And that's a good point that you brought that up, because Trump, he says, I'm the art of the deal. This is what the president has said all along. Hillary, do you anticipate that a lot of countries are going to try to negotiate this? And maybe to Michael's point there, could Canada maybe get that eliminated and have one economic driver of North America? But do you think you're already seeing some of these world leaders already picking up the phone call? And what do you take on sort of the negotiation tactic here?
Well, I think that Michael was absolutely right. And what I do think you're going to see, I think you're going to see the world leaders are going to capitulate. Why? Because they need us more than we need them. That's one of the things that's so great about America. And I will say, for example, Israel is a very good example that their finance minister, they just capitulated also. So they have a $34 billion bilateral trade with us. Of course, countries cannot say, oh, well, we'll just forget America. That isn't going to work. And if you look across the globe, one of the words that is not being used, John, and this is really bothering me because I look at a lot of international media, have international clients, I'm around the globe. The word reciprocal, if they don't think it's fair, for example, you just saw Mark Carney there. If you don't think it's fair, then why do you impose 250% tariffs on some of our dairy goods? If 250% isn't fair, then why do you have it on the U.S.? The U.S., America, has been the world's piggy bank for too long. Do you know when the last time was we had a trade surplus with the world? It was 1975. We need to go back to when we were not the world's piggy bank.
Michael, isn't Canada's tariff on the goods, there's a threshold though, right? Doesn't it? That has to reach a certain threshold before the tariff actually kicks in. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. I mean, everybody's talking about milk and dairy. I mean, there's also lumber. There's also steel. There's also aluminum. There's also a car part that comes from America, manufactured in Canada, painted in America, installed in cars that are sold to both. it's a cacophony of problems. Okay, you have to make a deal. That's what it's all about. So, I mean, if dairy is going to be a problem, I think dairy was a problem earlier when we looked at our fledgling farmers who were trying to protect their market, and American goods came in that were cheaper, quicker, faster, and more available, and brands that we recognize from watching advertisements. But this is a different scenario here. I mean, if you consider overall 30% of European cars, BMW, Volvo, Mercedes, Volkswagen, they're sold to America. 24% of German cars sold to America. 30% of Italian cars sold to America. I mean, that's a situation where you can see a valid position. I think Canada has to understand we are stronger together. If there has to be some type of a deal made with regards to dairy, let's throw that out. There's way more bigger fish in the barrel here, and there's greater potential for both our economies. But we're also in an election, John, so everybody's throwing stuff out. We had the NDP guy talk about victory bonds. Let's get victory bonds. I mean, that's not a bad idea, I guess. That's not what they got elected with, John.
All right. And you brought up cars, and actually, the British car maker Jaguar Land Rover is pausing its U.S. shipments now over these tariffs. So we'll wait to see what happens in the Canadian auto sector as well. Michael Shaban, Hillary Fordwicz, thank you so much. I have to leave it there. Always a pleasure.